I'm Marlene Saeed. This is Al Jazeera live from Doha. We're going to take you straight to Oslo. You can see that door there. That's where the person is going to come out in a moment and announce who the Nobel Peace Prize is going to go to for this year, 2023. And the winners, of course, always a very tightly guarded secret until the announcement. OK, let's have a listen in.
San, Zendegi, Azadi. Women, life, freedom. The Norwegian Nobel Committee has decided to award the Nobel Peace Prize for 2023 to Narges Mohammadi for her fight against the oppression of women in Iran and her fight to promote human rights and freedom for all. Her brave struggle has come with tremendous personal cost. Altogether, the regime has arrested her 13 times, convicted her 5 times, and sentenced her to a total of 31 years in prison and 154 lashes. Ms. Mohammadi is still in prison as I speak. In September 2022, a young Kurdish woman, Masha Gina Amini, was killed in the custody of the Iranian morality police. Her killing triggered the largest political demonstrations against Iran's theocratic regime since it came to power in 1979. Under the slogan, "Woman, Life, Freedom," hundreds of thousands of Iranians took part in peaceful protests against the authorities' brutality and oppression of women. The regime cracked hard down on the protests. More than 500 demonstrators were killed. Thousands were injured, including many who were blinded by rubber bullets fired by the police. At least 20,000 people were arrested and held in custody. The motto adopted by the demonstrators, "Woman, Life, Freedom," suitably expresses the dedication and work of Narges Mohammadi. Woman, she fights for women against systematic discrimination and oppression. Life, she supports women's struggle for the right to live full and dignified lives. This struggle across Iran has been met with persecution, imprisonment, torture, and even death. Freedom. She fights for freedom of expression and the right to independence, and against rules requiring women to remain out of sight and cover up their bodies. The freedom demands expressed by demonstrators apply not only to women, but to the entire population. In the 1990s, as a young physics student, Narges Mohammadi was already distinguishing herself as an advocate for equality and women's rights. After concluding her studies, she worked as an engineer as well as a columnist in various reform-minded newspapers. In 2003, she became involved with the Defense of Human Rights Center in Tehran, an organization founded by the Nobel Peace Prize laureate Shirin Ebadi. In 2011, Ms. Mohammadi was arrested for the first time and sentenced to many years of imprisonment for her efforts to assist incarcerated activists and their families. 2 years later, after her release on bail, Ms. Mohammadi immersed herself in a campaign against the use of death penalty. Iran has long been among the countries that execute the highest proportion of their inhabitants annually. Just since January 2022, more than 860 prisoners have been punished by death in Iran. Her activism against the death penalty led to the rearrest of Ms. Mohammadi in 2015 and to a sentence of additional years behind walls. Upon her return to prison, she began opposing the regime's systematic use of torture and sexualized violence against political prisoners, and especially women, that is practiced in Iranian prisons. Last year's wave of protests became known to the political prisoners held inside the notorious Evin prison in Tehran. Once again, Ms. Mohammadi assumed leadership. From prison, she expressed support for the demonstrators and organized solidarity actions among her fellow inmates. The prison authorities responded by imposing even stricter conditions. Ms. Mohammadi was prohibited from receiving calls and visitors. She nevertheless managed to smuggle out an article which the New York Times published on the one-year anniversary of Mahsa Jina Amini's killing. The message was, "The more of us they lock up, the stronger we become." From captivity, Ms. Mohammadi has helped to ensure that the protests have not ebbed out. Narges Mohammadi is a woman, a human rights advocate, and a freedom fighter. In awarding her this year's Nobel Peace Prize, the Norwegian Nobel Committee wishes to honor her courageous fight for human rights, freedom, and democracy in Iran. This year's Peace Prize also recognizes the hundreds of thousands of people who in the preceding year have demonstrated against the theocratic regime's policies of discrimination and oppression targeting women. Only by embracing equal rights for all can the world achieve the fraternity between nations that Alfred Nobel sought to promote. The award to Narges Mohammadi follows a long tradition in which the Norwegian Nobel Committee has awarded the Peace Prize to those working to advance social justice, human rights, and democracy. These are important preconditions for lasting peace. Thank you.
Madam Chair, what impact do you hope that this prize will have on the situation in Iran?
This prize is...
Okay, there you have it. The Nobel Peace Prize for 2023 has been announced. It's been awarded to the Iranian women's rights campaigner Narges Mohammadi. You can see her pictured there. The committee, we heard there from Berit Reiss-Andersen, the chair of the Nobel Committee, saying that she received the prize for a fight against the oppression of women in Iran and all her efforts for promoting human rights and freedom for all. Mohammadi has been in jail since 2016 and has long advocated to abolish the death penalty in Iran. She's also been elected the president of the Executive Committee of the National Council of Peace in Iran. Let's get more on this. We can speak to Henrik Oldal, who joins us from Oslo. He is the director of the Peace Research Institute. Thank you for your time. I was actually going through your own shortlist a little earlier, and you've picked it, haven't you? Miss Narges Mohammadi was top of your list.
She was, and we have been expecting a Human Rights Prize this year, and especially for women's rights. And this is not a surprise, and it's a huge, it's a very important prize, and one that is really celebrating the achievements of human rights defenders, and specifically, of course, women rights defenders in Iran, which has been a very troubled country.
It has indeed. Just to take a step back, I mean, how do they go about picking a winner?
So there is a large number of eligible nominators, those members of national parliaments. It could be professors of a lot of different sciences. So they're receiving more than 350 nominations each year, and the nomination deadline is in January. And right now, the way that this works is that the committee is vetting candidates carefully. They're considering different domains, and this year, human rights was on top of their agenda, and it's been both expected since there are no sort of other major developments in terms of peace negotiations and weapons agreements. But this year, with the human rights being an expected prize area, the prize to Iran is certainly one that will make a huge difference and will, I think, resonate well beyond the context of Iran.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about Narges. She is a campaigner, an Iranian campaigner. She's been in jail, I believe, on and off since 2011. She's in one of the more notorious prisons in Iran for, I believe, spreading propaganda. I mean, you touched on it, but tell us a bit more about how significant it is that she now receives this particular prize.
Yeah, absolutely. She's currently in Evin prison in Tehran and has been for a long time. She's been sentenced a number of times in the past for her contributions, for her activism. She's a member of the Human Rights Defenders Center, which was established by Shireen Ebadi, the 2003 prize winner. So she is contributing to sort of a long tradition of human rights defenders. She's worked not only for women's rights in Iran, she's worked against the death penalty, she's worked against corruption. So she's working for human rights broadly, and that's also something that the committee is emphasizing in the announcement, that she has worked for human rights for everyone in Iran. And so this is going to be, of course, a huge boost to her center, to the work that she and others have been doing at the Human Rights Defenders Center, and one that is putting human rights abuses in Iran on the map.
Yes, and of course, not just the people that she works with, but the women of Iran who have been fighting for their cause so long, especially since the death of Mahsa Amini.
Exactly, and there have been hundreds of people killed in the streets of Iran during the protests since 2022. So this is a prize that is also focusing on the contributions or the sacrifices, I should say, of young people in Iran that we've seen in most recent years, and this is, of course, an important way of underlining their sacrifices and the huge challenges that human rights activists in Iran are operating under.
Henrik, I hope this question is not too left field for you, but given the state of the world today and where we're at in terms of the different countries, does giving out an award for peace seem a little fruitless?
Yeah, we are now living through times that are less peaceful that we've seen in many years, and so in one way, you could say that awarding a peace prize now is more difficult, but I think it is more important than ever to highlight all of the good contributions that we see all over the world, and human rights activists are, of course, making those contributions, putting their life and health on the line, and making exceptionally important contributions to respecting human rights, democracy all over the world. And so this is an opportunity, in my view, to highlight all of those important ways of pursuing peace.
Thank you for your time, Henrik Uldal, the Director of Peace Research Institute, joining us there from Oslo. And just to recap, the Nobel Peace Prize of 2023 has been awarded to the Iranian women's rights campaigner Narges Mohammadi. There she is pictured. The committee said she received the prize for a fight against the oppression of women in Iran.